Johann Erwin Eugen Rommel was a field marshal and commander of Germany's armies from 1939 to 1944. He was known as the Desert Fox, also the title of a movie released by 20th Century Fox in 1951. This and many other public portrayals depict him as a leader with unshakable virtues such as chivalry, integrity, and honor. The movie also shows him as willing to defy Hitler's tyranny of evil at the risk of his career and then his own life, all of which creates a rather glamorous legend. Indeed, the movie makes a great point of quoting Winston Churchill's commentary on Rommel, which also, in hindsight, seems extremely glamorous.
His life and fate have best been summed up, ironically enough, in the words of Nazi Germany's sternest enemy, the Honorable Winston Churchill.
His ardor and daring inflicted grievous disasters upon us, but he deserves the salute to which I made him in the House of Commons in January 1942. He also deserves our respect because, although a loyal German soldier, he came to hate Hitler and all his works, and took part in the conspiracy to rescue Germany by displacing the maniac and tyrant. For this, he paid the forfeit of his life. In the somber wars of modern democracy, there is little place for chivalry.
But the truth is that whilst Rommel was involved in the attempt to assassinate Hitler in 1944, he had denied and ignored knowledge of such plotting since 1938, instead defending the Fuhrer's behavior and making excuses for his actions, whilst continuing to serve the Nazi war machine and its crimes against humanity. During this documentary, we will compare the Hollywood saga with the history books and reveal that the Desert Fox was perhaps not a people's hero, but instead a perpetrator of Hitler's reign of terror. To begin with, let us consider the implication of the judge's ruling at the Nuremberg war crimes trial. Between November 1945 and October 1946, war trials were held at the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg, where judges tried 20 surviving leaders of Nazi Germany. The tribunal focused on the crime of aggression, the plotting and waging of aggressive war against the world. The trials exacted justice against high-ranking Nazi military leaders.
In the prisoner's dock sit 20 odd broken men. Their personal capacity for evil is forever past. It is hard now to perceive in these miserable men as captives the power by which, as Nazi leaders, they once dominated much of the world and terrified most of it. We will show them to be living symbols of racial hatred, of terrorism and violence, and of the arrogance and cruelty of power.
Hermann Goering, Hitler's close friend, formerly known as the second man in the Reich. Goering looked a different man at the height of his power. Wilhelm Keitel, commander of Germany's armed forces. "I am just a soldier," he says. But this is not the face of a soldier. It's the face of a hangman and butcher. Grand Admiral Dönitz, chieftain of the Nazi pirates. His wolf packs sunk unarmed ships and neutral vessels without warning. Erich Raeder. He and Hitler conceived the idea of wiping Leningrad off the face of the earth. Alfred Jodl, Hitler's military advisor. Bloodthirsty and ruthless, and an implacable foe of the Soviet people. The Russians should be hanged, head downwards, he said. Arthur Seyss-Inquart, butcher of Poland, Austria, and the Netherlands.
All of these villains held a rank in the Third Reich with the standing of Field Marshal or higher, and all were found guilty of having perpetuated the Nazis' wholesale slaughter of men, women, and children prior to and throughout the Second World War. So it stands to reason that if he had survived to see Germany's surrender, the list of criminals would surely have included Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. Rommel was born in 1891 in Heidenheim, southern Germany, the third of 5 children. At the outbreak of the war in 1914, he was already a commander in the 49th Field Artillery Regiment and fought in France, where he was noted for successfully penetrating enemy lines with heavy covering fire coupled with rapid flanking maneuvers to achieve tactical surprise, and was awarded the Iron Cross. This is clearly an early precursor to the terrifying World War II battle tactic of blitzkrieg, which he would later develop and then execute with deadly results in the name of the Fuhrer. In 1917, he was again commended for leading his 150-man battalion in capturing 81 guns and 9,000 enemy soldiers at the loss of just 6 dead and 30 wounded in one action alone. Later that same year, in November, he repeated his blitzkrieg tactics, forcing 10,000 Italian troops to surrender to him, earning him the prestigious Ordre pour le Mérite. When the Great War ended, Rommel remained in the army and was given command of the 13th Infantry Regiment in Stuttgart and was then subsequently assigned to the Dresden Infantry School as instructor in 1929. During this time, he was promoted to major, then to lieutenant colonel. He wrote a best-selling book on infantry attacks, and he first met Germany's new chancellor, a certain Adolf Hitler. This is the point in the timeline in 1934 at which Rommel pledged himself to perpetuating crimes against humanity. We can say this with absolute clarity and assurance because he swore a personal oath of allegiance to Adolf Hitler, not to Germany, not to the Third Reich, but to the dictator himself and all he stood for. This is the oath he took.
I swear by God this holy oath, that I will render to Adolf Hitler, Fuhrer of the German Reich and people, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, unconditional obedience, and that I am ready, as a brave soldier, to risk my life at any time for this oath.
Erwin Rommel then did Hitler's bidding and helped to create a strong, structured foundation for the tyrannical Nazi Empire. An empire that even before war was declared had already begun a dark and deadly agenda of world domination through the medium of murder. The military might that Rommel trained, commanded, and turned into a fanatical fighting force was the enforcer of Hitler's deliberate and malicious attack on the peoples and the freedoms of the world. And this is how he did it. As an instructor at the War Academy in Potsdam between 1935 and 1938, he churned out thousands of German soldiers in complete disregard for the limitations Germany agreed to in the Versailles Treaty of 1919. In 1937, as the War Ministry liaison officer in charge of military training, he helped create the Hitler Youth, a malevolent police force heavily involved in the persecution of Jews. In 1938, he was appointed Commandant of the Theresian Military Academy at Wiener Neustadt, overseeing the military education of thousands of new troops. Hitler promoted Rommel to Major General and put him in command of the Führerbegleitbataillon. This was Hitler's escort that accompanied the leader of the Reich wherever he traveled, ensuring his personal security and safety. He trained armies for Hitler, he protected Hitler's life, and he fought and killed for Hitler.
Auch das Schulschiff Schleswig-Holstein nimmt die Westerplatte unter Feuer.
This included the invasion of Poland on the 1st of September 1939, the act of aggression that started the Second World War.
Nach der Einnahme trifft auch der Führer überraschend in der Stadt ein, die nach seinem Willen fortan Botenhafen heißen soll. Als alter Soldat des Weltkrieges befindet sich der Führer seit Beginn des Feldzuges an der Front bei seinen Soldaten.
Rommel attended Hitler's daily war briefings.
Mit seinen Soldaten teilt der Führer auch das Essen aus der Feldküche.
And accompanied him everywhere.
Mit den vormarschierenden Truppen rückt auch das Führerhauptquartier immer weiter ostwärts vor.
Making use of the opportunity to observe
Ständig
firsthand
wird der Führer über den Fortgang der Kampfhandlungen unterrichtet.
the use of tanks and other motorized units, a discipline in which he would later be acknowledged as an expert.
Ständig ergehen vom Führerhauptquartier die entscheidenden Weisungen und Befehle.
In February 1940, Hitler rewarded Rommel with a promotion to general and the command of the 7th Panzer Division, an armored division that included 3 battalions of tanks. Rommel's successes in World War I were based on surprise and maneuver, 2 elements for which the new panzer units were ideally suited. The invasion of France began on the 10th of May 1940, and Rommel employed his blitzkrieg doctrine with terrifying results. Subsequently, his drive for the northern French coast powered by his panzer tanks and amphetamine-fueled troops, saw him smash his way through towns and cities, leaving a trail of dead that included French civilians as well as French and British troops. By the end of the first week of the campaign, his forces had crossed the River Meuse, taken Avesnes, and pressed on to Cateau, taking over 10,000 prisoners and losing just 36 men in the process, earning him the Knight's Cross. Rommel resumed his advance on the 5th of June and drove for the River Seine to secure the bridges near Rouen, advancing 60 miles in just 2 days. Here, the French offered fierce resistance. Enraged by this, it is said that Rommel instructed the German artillery to bombard the city, and then he banned the local fire brigade from extinguishing the inferno, reducing much of the city to ashes. Historians record that after the fall of the city, around 100 black civilians and colonial troops were summarily executed by unknown German units. On the 17th of June, Rommel reached the coast near Dieppe, and the 7th Panzer Division was ordered to advance on Cherbourg. They covered 150 miles in just 24 hours. Moving so fast that at times the German High Command lost track of their whereabouts, earning them the nickname the Ghost Division. In February 1941, Rommel was appointed commander of the new Africa Corps and promoted to lieutenant general.
Deutsche Truppen einsatzbereit in Afrika. General Rommel besichtigt eine motorisierte Formation in Tripolis.
His performance in the Western Desert Campaign over the following 2 years would earn him the nickname the Desert Fox.
Panzerkampfwagen des deutschen Afrikakorps auf dem Marsch nach Tobruk. Immer enger schließt sich der Ring um die letzten englischen Stellungen in der Cyrenaika.
After his arrival in Tripoli, with Hitler's insistent encouragement, Rommel launched an immediate offensive, catching the British Western Defence Force completely off guard. The British fell back to Mersa al Brega, and by April 1941 they were forced to pull out of the city of Benghazi. Cyrenaica was captured by 8th of April, except for the port city of Tobruk.
Ein zerstörter englischer Panzer, der die Straße sperren sollte. Überall Spuren harten Kampfes. Die Briten gingen hier in zäher Verteidigung nur Schritt um Schritt zurück.
Rommel knew that by capturing the port of Tobruk, he could greatly reduce the length of his supply lines.
Die von den Engländern verlassenen Stellungen werden sofort wieder in Verteidigungszustand gesetzt. Von allen Seiten dringen die deutschen Truppen konzentrisch ab Tobruk vor.
He laid siege to the city for months. A massive British counterattack linked up with the Tobruk defenders, and Rommel was forced to pull back to where he first started.
Ist auf feindliche Streitkräfte gestoßen. Artillerie nimmt die englischen Stellungen unter Feuer.
Hitler promoted Rommel to Field Marshal.
Gefangene Briten werden eingebracht.
Rommel continued his pursuit of the 8th Army, which had fallen back to heavily prepared defences at El Alamein. But Rommel was unable to counter the Allied air superiority, and the Axis supply situation was worsening by the day. Rommel realized the tide was turning. General Bernard Montgomery was made the new commander of the British 8th Army.
Noch wehrt sich der Engländer an dieser Stelle zäh und erbittert. Einschläge der feindlichen Artillerie.
He immediately implemented well-prepared positions that Rommel could not hope to outflank. This and the lack of Axis fuel supplies led to the resounding defeat of Rommel's Afrika Korps at the Battle of Alam el Halfa. Rommel suffered over 3,000 casualties and lost large numbers of tanks, guns, lorries, and vital supplies. He now realized that the war in Africa could not be won.
Ein verzweifelter Ausbruchsversuch britischer Panzer wird durch das zusammengefasste Feuer deutscher Flakbatterien zerschlagen.
Rommel ordered his forces to disengage and begin to withdraw. An action which resulted in a message from Hitler that his troops were to hold their position to the last man. Rommel disobeyed and issued orders
Ein Verwundeter wird zurückgebracht.
for a retreat on the 4th of November. This part of Rommel's story is borne out by the movie The Desert Fox, which again shows the Field Marshal disagreeing with Hitler, but continuing to fight for his unjust cause.
The situation requires that the El-Alamein position be held to the last man. There's to be no retreat, not so much as 1 millimeter. It must be victory or death, signed Adolf Hitler.
It's incredible.
You're not going to pay attention to such nonsense, are you?
It's an order, Byline, a military order from General Headquarters. A clear, straight, stupid, criminal military order from General Headquarters.
And what are you going to do? Double the insanity by obeying it? We've got the best soldiers in the German army here. They may be just hanging on now, but they're still a force. They're still fighting. If we take them out now, they can fight again tomorrow. But this is sheer madness. It's out of the Middle Ages. Nobody has said victory or death since people fought with bows and arrows. Why, this is an order to throw away an entire army.
If I may remind you, sir, here in the field, these men are yours, not his.
I just can't understand it.
I can't. He's insane.
He's not insane. He's... But neither am I. Pull him out, Byline. I'll argue with him about it later.
In November, Rommel became General Inspector of the Western Defenses. He was given a staff that befitted an army group commander and the powers to travel, examine, and make suggestions on how to improve the defenses. The Commander-in-Chief West, von Rundstedt, believed that there was no way to stop the invasion near the beaches because of the Allied Navy's firepower. Rommel believed their only opportunity would be to oppose the landings directly at the beaches and to counter-attack there before the invaders could become well established. Upon arriving in northern France, Rommel was dismayed by the lack of completed works. He had millions of mines laid and thousands of tank traps and obstacles set up on the beaches and throughout the countryside. Rommel himself was responsible for the design of many defences, even submitting ideas for preventing the glider landing of troops. But by D-Day, the preparations were far from finished. Storms in the Channel on the 5th of June seemed to make a landing very unlikely. So Rommel left France and was at home celebrating his wife's birthday when he was recalled at 10 p.m. on the 6th of June.
And then, finally, after 4 long years of preparation, it came. D-Day. And the greatest armada and the vastest movement of men and arms in the history of the world rose from England and set out for the assault on the beaches of Normandy and the German fortress of Europe.
By which time the Allies had secured 5 beachheads, landing 155,000 troops. At a meeting with Hitler at his headquarters in northern France on the 17th of June, Rommel warned Hitler about the inevitable collapse in the German defenses. In reality, this was a short and insignificant meeting, but the Hollywood movie made it out to be a huge confrontation and again used the incident as a medium for glamorizing Rommel's defiance in telling truth to power.
On June 17th, they met in Hitler's underground stronghold at Magival, near Soissons.
This is an extremely difficult duty, my Fuhrer, but circumstances leave me with no choice. We reached a crisis on this front that calls for a decision on the very highest level.
But you've said that. You've said that before. And every time I talk to you, we're facing another crisis.
When the enemy has overwhelming superiority on land, at sea, and in the air, and continues to grow stronger with every hour, while we grow weaker at the same rate, that to me is a crisis by any standards that I understand. You must be prepared to see the enemy break through our lines and push out into the interior of France. Militarily, the end is already in sight. We have nothing more to throw in.
What is it you're proposing? That we surrender?
I give you the facts, sir. I only ask that you draw the proper conclusions.
I suggest to you, Rommel, that you confine your genius to fighting and leave the conduct of the war to those who are responsible for it.
My apologies, sir.
On the 17th of July 1944, a fighter plane strafed Rommel's staff car. The movie Desert Fox claims that this was the 17th of June, the same day as his over-dramatized meeting with the Fuhrer. The date, the landscape, and the aircraft used in the film were all incorrect.
When on June the 17th, on a country road near a village with the ominous name of Montgomery, aircraft.
Rommel's car was attacked, however, and a 20mm round shattered his left arm. The attack caused the vehicle to veer off the road and crash. Rommel was thrown from the car, suffering injuries to his face and fractures to his skull. Charlie Fox, a Spitfire pilot with 412 Squadron, claimed to lead the strafing run. His account reads as follows.
I spotted a large black car travelling at high speed along a road with trees on either side. It was coming towards us on my left at about 11 o'clock. I maintained a steady, level flight until the vehicle passed us. I then began a curving, diving attack to my left, and I started firing at approximately 300 yards. I timed the shots so that I was able to fire and get him as the car came through a small opening in the trees. I got him on that pass. We were moving pretty fast, but I knew I got him. I saw hits on the car, and I saw it start to curve and go off the road. At that time, I had no idea who it was. It was just a large, black, open car, gleaming in the sun without any camouflage, which was unusual.
Rommel was hospitalized. 3 months later, however, the Field Marshal was still convalescing. His domestic internment, as it turns out, was probably more related to his involvement in a plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler than it was his state of health. The second half of Henry Hathaway's film, The Desert Fox, portrays the last part of Rommel's life, in which he was readily focused on his part in Operation Valkyrie, the failed attempt to assassinate Adolf Hitler in July of 1944. In fact, the role that Rommel played in the 20 July plot is difficult to ascertain, as most of the leaders who were directly involved did not survive. Some evidence of Rommel's involvement in Operation Valkyrie includes Rudolf Hartmann's eyewitness account of a meeting in May of 1944 between the group that would become known as the Inner Circle of the Resistance. It was a meeting at which Rommel was said to have shown decisive determination and clear approval of the Inner Circle's plan. Rommel advised Hitler that if he himself was the obstacle for peace, then he should either resign or kill himself. But instead, Operation Valkyrie went ahead as planned with Rommel's support. And on 20th of July 1944, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg detonated a bomb during the Fuhrer's meeting at his Wolf's Lair headquarters. Hitler survived the attempt, and afterwards the Gestapo arrested more than 7,000 people. During the 3 months that followed, Rommel was implicated a number of times during the interrogation and torture of those arrested, to the point where his complicity was irrefutable. General Bergdorf visited Rommel at his home on the 14th of October 1944. He informed him of the charges against him and offered him a choice of either a court hearing, which would have been tantamount to a death sentence for him and his family, or to commit suicide, dying a hero with full military honors and a full pension for his family. The 1951 Hollywood movie further dramatizes and glamorizes this part of Rommel's story.
You'll observe that the charges are supported by an overwhelming body of testimony.
I can read, thank you. You've been uncommonly fortunate, I see, in deathbed confessions.
It's all perfectly legal, I assure you, sir.
He opts to commit suicide, explaining his decision to his wife and son.
Are you sure there's no other way?
No other, darling.
We then see him getting into Bergdorf's car and being driven to just outside his home village of Herrlingen, where he did in fact take a cyanide pill. History shows that just 10 minutes later, Rommel's wife was telephoned to inform her of his death. Rommel officially died of the wounds he received in battle in the earlier strafing of his staff car. And as promised, he was given a full public military funeral attended by high-ranking officers. His grave is located at Herrlingen, and a memorial can be found at the roadside outside the village where he took his own life. The legend of Field Marshal Rommel has not readily been associated with war crimes, and the 1951 movie makes no reference to any. There is, however, evidence suggesting that he was accountable for specific atrocities. In France, it is recorded that Rommel ordered the execution of a French officer who refused to cooperate. Historians comment that this makes Rommel a war criminal, condemned by his own hand. In addition, there are reports that Rommel's 7th Panzer Division committed atrocities against surrendering French troops and prisoners of war. According to Martin S. Alexander, this included the murder of 50 surrendering officers and men. German historian Wolfgang Prosk states that Rommel forbade his troops from buying anything from the Jewish population of Tripoli. He used Jewish slave labor, and he commanded Jews to clear minefields by walking on them. Rommel is also said to have requested proof of Aryan descent from the suitor of his granddaughter Gertrude. The Hollywood blockbuster is heavily focused on Rommel's steadfast character of good conscience and fair play. But the portrait we are given does not account for the loss and suffering caused by the Field Marshal's campaigns against the Allies, which resulted in unfathomable numbers of casualties. For example, the casualties on all sides for his campaigns in Europe in 1940. The death toll in North Africa. The casualty numbers resulting from just Operation Overlord in Normandy, 1944. So despite the best efforts of Hollywood and other would-be pundits to glorify a legend, one has to conclude that Erwin Rommel was indeed an architect of darkness. To quote historian Wolfgang Mahl, it is undeniable that Rommel played the role of a field marshal in a criminal war.